Get ready before life happens. The podcast helping you navigate life's what ifs.
Welcome to Get Ready Before Life Happens. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Justyn Makarewicz. Oh, wait, I just totally mangled your name, Justyn. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks so much, Tony. It's Justyn Makarewycz. So, yeah.
So I knew I was going to mangle it because I asked you right before the show. So my apologies.
Totally. We were talking about, it's just so funny, when that first day of school, especially in grammar school and high school, where the teacher would go off and then it would get to the M's and it would be Justyn, silence. Usually by my teachers. So used to it and not a problem.
So anyway, but it must have been hard when you had to fill in all those little bubbles, because you and I go back to those days where you had to fill in all the little bubbles.
That's right, the scan cards. That's right.
So anyway, we're going to talk about other things on the show, but it's great to be here with you. So Justyn, of course, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here today.
Yeah. I'm so excited about being here. And, like I've said a couple of times with you, Tony, just really, big fan about what you're doing and the work that you and so many other people are doing around financial literacy or fluency as well, financial fluency. Just to give a little bit about background about me. So in my work experience, I spent about 10 years in digital marketing roles across a couple of different companies. And then I was a recruiter for 2.5 years, specifically sourcing and partnering with various clients for digital marketing talent. So getting sort of that staffing and recruitment experience. And for the last 14 plus years now, I work in graduate level, so MBA and specialty master's business school at Baruch College in New York City, doing employer relations and being on the career development side. So, that's everything from the career development process, as well as the employer relations process, and from a university experience and student experience and student recruitment process. And that's really just a huge part of my passion, is individual career development. And that can be within a university setting, starting even when I was a recruiter myself, but, a university setting or non-university setting, right? And truly passionate about that work and how individuals go through their processes for career development, how they explore their own lives and what they want to do for the next 40 to 50 years that people work in, doing work. And my mission is really to make that be a better thing, and an enjoyable process for people. In my work within career development, and sort of my own financial literacy, one of the big things that's come up for me individually is how financial literacy and the tools of financial literacy really can feed into a person's intentional career development and planning process. And that's kind of the big sort of idea here. And it's not that financial idea necessarily within the financial literacy process, but it's flexing those muscles that are very much the same.
Yeah, well, let's go a little bit deeper on that, because
Sure.
you and I were talking about that pre-show, and I came on your podcast and we were talking
That's right.
a lot about this, is that they are intertwined. And they quite often people have found themselves in a career where they're like, okay, well, I'm making good money, but I'm not happy. So it's like, where do you start off? Because you're starting off that process. I'm sure you have two different tracks. You have young people and then people who are doing their second career. But how do you help young people start to sort of think about that?
Yeah,
Their
absolutely.
happiness.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the process from the financial literacy and that whole process is actually really follows a very similar process. And I'm going to go through it for sure, but just to echo what you said about some individuals, and I think we may all know some individuals who've got this job that pays a lot of money, but they might be traveling 4 days a week, or they hate it just entirely, and it doesn't reflect who they are. Or, maybe they chose a career because their uncle said they'd be good at X, or a friend said they'd be good at Y, or realizing even, 5 years in or 10 years in, you know what? I just really want to become that product manager because I think it sounds cool. But I do want to also say, there are so many people out there, right, who have made these career planning and development decisions, which have led them on a path that's been great and led them on a place where they've gotten to that's been very fulfilling. And so, one of the things I really do think is, that if career development and planning, it follows this universal skill set that ultimately individuals tailor for themselves, right? And that's what financial literacy is, right? So there are universal skills within financial literacy and being mindful of one's financial life, but it's all tailored to the individual, right? So those are very, very specific and unique things. And so, I find that this is also with working in Career Services University. We work with a lot of international students, so students from different countries that where there's even universality around the globe around this. Careers may follow different sort of ways, or et cetera, or networking might be different, say in Germany or China or something like that, as it is in the United States when people come here. But there is universality around it too. So, just going to talk like about three things I think are really important, that within, financial literacy and in career development that kicks it off, whether you are young or old, right? Is first of all the what we call sort of the wooey stuff about intentionality and purpose, right? So like really making some self-assessment and exploration and taking that time to explore within financial fluency. Like if you're using those skills there too, take that same and just and you can and apply it into your career. So, really understanding what's important to you, what it is that you want to do. I sometimes even really think about, on a daily basis, what is that going to look like even for individuals? For some of that exploration process too, it's sort of finding out what you don't know that's out there career wise. That also is within financial literacy in many ways, is finding out sort of what are the things that need to, that you might not know about in order to protect your future. So those really translate into career planning and the outlook. One of the things that's also really, really important here, is, and that comes out in financial literacy as well, that's good, is it doesn't have to be forever, and things can change. These are things that are malleable. Your planning can change down the line when you change. Oftentimes, I think that's one of the things that's exciting within financial literacy, is that actually I think a lot of people can get excited about things will change in the future, and the same should happen with a career planning process too. To just sort of like really understand what that might be. And you get to also, within financial literacy, I think people sometimes even explore those things about like, what's the impact I want to have in this world and in my life? And what do I want to do? Same thing with careers. Like it starts with that. That's
Yeah. Well,
happening and that's happening whether you're 18 or you're, 50 or 55 or 60.
yeah, and I'm glad you said that things can change, because I think that sometimes we forget about that, either with our careers or our
Yeah.
financial lives. We get launched on that trajectory, or as you mentioned, we go into this because somebody has that expectation for us, and so we go into it.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
uh,
And it's needing to sometimes, self-assess and just sort of think, is this an expectation that I want for myself, or is this I'm allowing somebody to put an expectation on me, and then making action on it? And so that's that exploring and self-assessment part right at the beginning.
yeah,
And then
I
so
love.
yeah,
Oh, no, no.
yeah. Um, so, the second part of that process too, really reflects on financial literacy skills there too, just like they do in career development, is that goal setting and action. So really, you've got this planning of the horizon, and oftentimes in financial planning and literacy, et cetera, you're looking at like, hey, what do I really want in my life down the road? What's that horizon look like? And then it's working backwards and making and setting those goals, right, and taking action plans. So, and being mindful. So like we sometimes even talk with students very much like, hey, you want to get to that SVP role within a specific company. Like you want to be that senior manager at an accounting firm. Let's step back. What's going to be that first step? What's that first year need to look like? What do you really need to, what do you want to be focused on achieving in that first year so that you are, that you're really making those goals and taking those right steps? And then, who do you need to be talking to internally to be, to start to make those moves then maybe in a year and a half or two to the next level? And then what do you need to be doing there? So that things can actually also feel tangible and that they're moving at a right place. Very much the same in financial literacy too. This is a month to month, year to year part of action that you've set for this great goal ahead of your life, and that's really really important too. And wanting to really take the right steps and making the right moves and really like being able to leverage your current job to get the skills you need or to make the moves that you want to make. That's that second part really of that setting goals that are happening on both ends specifically too.
Yeah, no, I love that. Leverage your current situation. And I want to go back to something you said, because I think
Sure.
this is really important when we talk about careers, financial fluency, is personalization
Absolutely.
and keeping your eyes on what you want to do.
That's right. And I mean, for all of our careers, I think if when individuals start to compare, start to get really competitive or start to think they need to go a certain way because it's going really great for somebody else, the individualization has gotten lost. And
Mhm.
that's when things can go wrong for people in their careers many times too. Where sometimes, they've decided that they've decided, what, I really want to go down this one path and just realizing, oh my gosh, it looks so great for Tony. And a year and a half in, I'm just miserable. And that's just not going to be something that's sustainable, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something, that we run across in personal finance so often is somebody, who maybe do extreme budgeting
Oh,
and they're
right.
not happy,
Right.
and it's like, that's not right for them. It's okay. I'll say this in a lot of episodes. It's okay to go out and buy coffee if you want to buy coffee, if you enjoy
Totally.
it,
That's
it's,
right. That's right.
maybe just
Totally.
don't. But that's popular personal finance advice. It works for some people, and other people, it makes them absolutely miserable.
Right. Totally. I mean, this third step that is, part of that process for both processes too are you like basically making decisions and making the decisions you need to make and reevaluation, which kind of goes back to, hey, everything is malleable, things can change, your life is going to change. So obviously your perspectives will change both financially as well as in your career, right? So if you want to be able to make safe space for that, then evaluating is the way to do it. So, this is all about evaluating your job, evaluating your performance. It's also about evaluating offer packages that may come to you when you get offers or you land another job, right? Like, is this then the move you want to make that's going to keep you financially straight and then also even happy? Those financial literacy skills are really going to help in that job of offer evaluation part. I think also one of the things that's really big too is, getting to really flex the muscles of financial literacy on your terms can give also this space and the ability to make pivots that could be really, really important in the changes in careers that people want to make. Like maybe there's something entrepreneurial that someone is going to be making. If you have those financial literacy skills that you're setting yourself up in a way that's really, really secure, you can maybe afford then to make that leap so that you can pursue something new or take a step back even financially so that you can go in a different direction if that's needed. And also like we talked about this really on the decision making front too, much in the financial literacy, it's about timing too. So being able to set those timing benchmarks and things like that, because careers have to grow and they have to keep growing, and people have to keep growing because of technology, because of whatever it might be. Um, Big part of financial literacy. And there's a point here I want to make too, Tony, is that I'm not trying to make sort of like, oh, isn't this interesting that there are comparisons here very much in financial literacy, and in career development planning, but actually the investment of using the skills in financial literacy are going to actually help individuals make their career development even stronger. And it doesn't matter when they make it or et cetera, but actually those skills really are going to help their career development process, which ultimately is going to make their lives happier too. It's not just kind of this interesting correlation, right?
Yeah, well, you and I talked about this
Yeah.
before we recorded, is it's all intertwined.
Yes.
And building up these areas across the board are are going to help you succeed. Is, if you have basic financial literacy skills, you're able to save, you're able to budget, all
Yep.
those things, is they are going to help you in your career because you're going to feel more stable. You're not going to feel like, okay, I need to make every penny that I can. Well,
Yeah.
I guess pennies aren't going to get you very far nowadays, but is that you don't have to worry about that because you're able to offset that with other decisions that you make.
That's right.
And I want to just move back to one thing because this
Sure.
comes up for people with offers. And I think offers can be very confusing for people because oftentimes, they look and they go, okay, well, I'm going to make more salary here, so that's a better choice. But that's not really, for me, what it comes down to when comparing two offers. So what do you suggest to, let's say, some of your students who have multiple offers? What would you say to them for comparing different offers?
Absolutely. I mean, we actually sit them down for a number of reasons to look at the overall benefit package so that they understand, in fact, where the compensation is coming from. So, if if they've gone through a financial literacy process where they have retirement goals or they've got lifestyle goals, et cetera, how are the other offers feeding into those goals? So that definitely is that's a huge part of the offer development. And then it's not only it's not only feeds into sort of understanding that, but then feeds into the negotiation part too, of what's important for individuals and their offers, and going back for a negotiation if necessary, specifically. So thinking about, again, like those retirement benefits, the PTO, the time off, any other benefits that might be coming that are really, really important as well. And then there's always the lifestyle choice part. That's the really, really big part. There in many ways, in fact, we speak with students about offers in which they're in a professional services or agency type of environment where they're serving clients versus in-house. There may be so many differences there, but your lifestyle is going to be so much different because you might be in a client service capacity in which you may need to travel, or you're going to be doing long hours versus an in-house capacity where that might not be expected. And is that important to you? Those are, that's a really big part of that offer sort of valuation and negotiation.
Definitely. And I want to go back to something you said because I think this is really important for people who are watching and listening to reflect on, is that employee benefits play a huge factor in compensation
Hmm.
packages. That the value of just your health insurance premiums alone is significant. But if you roll that into life insurance, disability insurance, vision insurance,
Yes.
a retirement plan contribution, you're talking, in some cases, 50 to 100% bump. Yeah, I mean, usually not 100%, but it's usually 25 to 50% additional compensation that you're getting. So I think for people, when you're looking at these packages, as you point out, it's about so much more than the actual salary. But one thing I want to walk back to too that you talk about is negotiating the offer, that I think people oftentimes feel like it's a take it or leave it. I mean, what do you
Mm.
tell your students about that? I mean, somebody makes them an offer. Do you say, hey, take it or leave it? Or do you say,
Yeah, it really
talk to them.
depends. Yeah, that's a great question. It really depends. Again, we're all talking about, again, it depends on the individual and where they are. If an individual is there where they have two offers, now they can really, go back for a negotiating tool. If they have one offer and then they're in, say, getting to final rounds in a second opportunity that might be an offer. There's ways of then negotiating, et cetera. If it's just, one offer, we always, whatever those scenarios might be, on the Career Center side, but in general, we would suggest, and I would suggest with anybody, whether they're a student or not, is evaluate that offer and really understand, is this moving me forward in any way, or is it not moving me forward? And that's really the most important part. And also in my current situation too, one thing that I think we're seeing in the news, Tony, as well, especially with entry level work and post grad work, right, is that the hiring for some of those earlier entry level roles is slowing down for many graduates. And so I think somebody who might be listening to this and they don't have a job or they don't have that first job might be saying, Justyn, what are you talking about financial planning? Like, I don't even have money to do this process. And in fact, I want to, my whole point here too is actually, again, I really encourage individuals in this situation to start doing the financial planning process and start going through that process for themselves, even if they're not making that money, because it will help them in the whole job search and career development search process for them if they really do start from that financial literacy process, because it's such a great goal setting and vision setting type of exercise that then has actionable steps and really goes through things that then carries into the first job. So to go back to your original question, then it might be, okay, individual, you've got this offer in front of you, take it, because it's going to move you forward, and then it's going to give you that breathing room where 12 months down the line, you are then going to be able to reassess and reevaluate and come from a different perspective to then go even further towards the goals that you want for your career.
Yeah, well, that's excellent advice. And it actually I reflect back on the start of my career. I came out of
Yeah.
college. I was going to go into bond trading. But at the time I was going to go into bond trading, a couple big banks were emerging. So there were a lot of experienced bond traders who were also looking for work. So there was no way I was going to get hired over them. I mean, because, in the San Francisco Bay Area, there's not that many bond traders. So the market
Right.
was still pretty relatively small. But, I took another job, in insurance, because it was a job that got me started moving up the career path. So when you talk
Right.
about that, I think that's also something for people on their first job, is that sometimes you need to make that trade-off,
Yeah,
just like with everything, so you can get going and
that's
get
right.
your momentum.
That's right. And again, these, so first, for some people too, within a career development process, oftentimes what can happen is a paralyzing process of, well, am I making the right decision because I'm going to be in this role and it's going to be forever, or I don't know if I'm going to be a good accountant or bond trader. I kind of just need to try it to see it. I've learned about it. That's great, but I'm kind of not sure if it's going to be. And so, but at some point, if you've gone through an experience too, like financial planning and literacy, it's making you get into the habit of taking action and taking also intentional steps. And that's the important thing. That's the really important process too.
Well,
And
I think,
and it gives this visualization that can also sometimes make things feel tangible, even if they're down the road somewhat. That's important. Sorry, I cut you off, Tony.
oh no, I was just going to reiterate what you said about taking intentional steps. I think that's important. When you do these things, is you have to do them with intention. Intention
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, that's where it is, and that's where the financial literacy part is such an important skill to go through. So encourage people to go through this, even if they're entrenched in a career already, and they know they're happy in it too. And if they haven't gone through it is sort of their financial literacy process too, and go through it and see how much that even changes your own career. And it will.
Definitely. So, here's a question. So, I'm sure you have some students who are, midlife.
Yeah,
They've been in
yeah,
the
of course.
workforce, they come back, they're in their
Yeah.
30s or 40s. What are you finding that's different about them and their outlook on these things in financial literacy? What kind of advice do you give them? Because they already know probably what they don't like. They may not know what they like yet, but how
Yeah.
do you get them to help move forward?
Yeah, that absolutely. I mean, the biggest part in how we help them move forward is that first step of self-assessment and exploration, of going back to the basics and going back to the beginning, and trying to figure out exactly why why these things aren't resonating as they maybe once had, and what exactly is it about that, so that you can grab onto something and have some bricks to then start being able to build upon, to then move people forward. That's the biggest thing specifically. And so, so sometimes we have people in midlife. I mean, this happens certainly on a graduate school level for sure, coming back and saying, "Hey, I'm doing my degree, I'm doing my MBA, and I definitely want to become this person, or I want to become this, I want to do this role, specific role." And it's important for from a career center perspective to help individuals in the development of their careers to really ask the whys, not and lead them through that process, very much an iterative process, so that they can start to explain exactly why it is they're going down the path, hear themselves about it too, and then create a plan, or possibly even having a realization that, like, oh, whoa, maybe I haven't thought this through as much. Maybe I need to be thinking this much more diligently, or I need to be talking with more people and doing more exploration and networking and talking with people about what it is that I want to do next. And so ultimately, with any individual, whether a student or not, investing in that part of, if you're frustrated in your career, or if you're doing a change or a shift or something like that, investing in that first part is really vital.
That's awesome. And I want to go back and emphasize one thing you said about understanding your why. I
Mhm.
think we lose sight of that with almost, all across the board. And it's easy to lose sight of it. But I
For
think
sure.
whether you're talking about your money or your career, or let's say marriage,
Yeah.
understanding your why is super important to, being happy and fulfilled. And that's what all this is really about.
That's totally
So
it. Totally it. And those skills are developed within financial literacy, is asking those things too. So you're getting both. It's almost two birds with one stone in many ways. Financial literacy,
definitely.
careers.
Exactly. And one thing I think people do need to realize is that you're not always going to have a career where everything is roses and 100%.
That's
It's just like with your money, you're going to have to eat your vegetables. Like, I just got our property tax bill and I am not excited about paying it. But,
that's right.
it's part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of life. And there are going to be parts of your career where you're not happy.
Yeah.
And you don't like 100% of everything that you have to do. And so I think, and your money is the same way. There's parts where you're not going to be real happy about it.
And that's actually, it's funny that this goes back to a point that you just made, right? I think probably with younger, talent that's just entering the job market, there is, potentially that excitement about the career is going to be roses. And Tony, like, one of the things of those people that do come back to, say, graduate school, they're in their 30s, they're established, right? So, of the example you made, they're less likely to, in fact, have those glasses on about the career being roses. But the one thing that definitely is key is they want a better life for themselves. That's the consistent thing for sure.
Definitely. No, and that's a great goal. So, before we start to close out, is what
Yeah.
is your best advice for students, to try to balance financial reality with their personal passion? Because that's a big thing, especially when you're in your 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing is don't forget the passion. Always have the passion on that goal, on that board, wherever you need it to be. You don't pass up that passion ever. And then, through a whole sort of financial, if you're going through this financial literacy process, understanding again your budgeting, like what is the income you need or what do you need to survive, et cetera. And then also just have the reality of, hey, if I need to just get something to get something, if I need to get my foot in the door, or whatever that might be, don't be afraid to do that. And also sometimes don't be afraid that if I do this, my passion is going to be lost out. Because if you have it always on your horizon and you always have it as your focus, get that foot in the door and don't lose sight of that passion and start to then work even more towards making that happen and making that a reality.
Well,
And I hope also for y'all young people, they just get the thing that is going to be their passion. I really hope that for them.
Well, and I think, it's a balancing out. Is sometimes you do need to get your foot in the door, and sometimes,
Yeah.
it's like we were talking a minute ago. Sometimes you have to eat your vegetables. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
we can't just have dessert.
We can't just have dessert. And one of the big things about, careers, one of the, some of the there's so many various stats out there, right? Is that 70% of all roles end up happening through referrals. And so referrals end up happening through networks. And one of the biggest ways that we all end up developing our really strong networks are at work, because we spend so much of our lives there outside of home, right? And these are people who have also various networks behind them, not only within organizations, but external to organizations, such that they end up referring people, right? That you meet people who can ultimately also potentially get you to where you want to be, whether at that organization or externally, moving you towards your goal and your passion.
Yeah, I love that, and I don't know. You and I go back, maybe not quite as far, but when I first started, it was like your most valuable asset was your Rolodex,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
and now it's your LinkedIn network. It's
Yeah.
who you know.
That's
It
right.
it still comes down to that, and it's I'll give a shout out to my friend Camille Roberson, who's always talking about networking tips,
Mm.
because it's a strength of your network, but not only how many people you know, but how well you know them.
Yep.
Can you message them on LinkedIn and will they reply?
Yes,
Do they even
exactly.
know who you
Who
are?
you are.
Because some people will have tens of thousands of connections on LinkedIn, but none of them are very close.
For
And,
sure.
you can have a curated set of people in your network. And so, like you talk about, I don't think there is a more valuable asset in your professional life than your network.
That's
I,
right.
I can't think of anything.
No, absolutely true. And it's, and that's part of that financial literacy process is, as well, like I find in that exploration is sort of like asking yourself, who do I want to spend more time with in my life? And who are the types of people I want to do that? And I want to build relationships with those people. It's the same thing in your career of just sort of making that network be something that's cultivated, that's true, that's genuine as well, that's not fake, and that really resonates who you are, right? That's the most important thing, because absolutely, Tony, we all may have 5,000, 10,000 LinkedIn requests, but who knows how many of them will actually reply after I have met them 5 years ago and not cultivated them, not invested in them, not given them the time that are needed, right? It's all about people in the end too.
Definitely. I've started to do something that I find almost a little scary, and that is not accepting connection requests, where I was more of an open connector up until a few months ago, where I was starting to
Good.
really think about if, if this person is not sending a message, which is okay, because sometimes I don't send messages because I have the free plan and you can only send
Right.
so many messages. But if there's
Yes.
not an immediate, so if they don't send a message and there's not an immediate alignment, so if somebody's
Yeah.
a financial planner and they connect with me, then I just pretty much automatically connect with them. Or if they're in the
Makes
financial
sense.
technology space, that
Yep.
there's, yeah, and I'd imagine the same thing is for you in career development. If other people in career development, because there's a professional alignment. But I think that's something that people, just miss right off the bat as they try to connect with you.
Yeah,
And it's like, okay, why are you connecting with me?
that's
And
right.
I think that's important.
Yeah, it's absolutely important, and I think also in making sure that you're genuine in them is also really important too. That you're not sort of just connecting with somebody because you want to ask them for something is a big thing too. So the fact that you're being judicious about accepting requests is really great, and it also, for individuals too, doing that also kind of makes your network in many ways better. But we're talking sort of about the social media platform, I think LinkedIn in general. So, that's one thing. One thing that you bringing that up to Tony, that that is coming to mind too is we always encourage individuals, whether students or alumni or whatever they might be, but I encourage through life in general too we're all helping each other out in many ways. And we always encourage also individuals to make the effort to connect people they think should meet together that they know, and help make those genuine connections. We find that just sort of like really just sort of like loops right back in a karmic way in many ways, but that's part of sort of the whole place of life, etc. But definitely in careers and career development, you'll find when you do that with people that you actively connect others as much as possible, it'll come back to you in your career. You'll be surprised how quickly and how many times if you do that actively.
Yeah, and I would say, now I'm not in career development, but if I had
Yeah,
to give one piece of career development advice to somebody, it'd be build your network.
yeah,
Uh,
that's
you
exactly
know,
it. Yep.
so maybe it's like real estate, real estate, real estate,
It really is.
or what
Meet
is
as
it? Location, location, location. That's
Location,
it.
location, location. It's network, network, network. Meet as many people as possible, absolutely, and be out there and be, and just and meet people for sure. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
provide value to them
Yes.
and stay in touch. It's like, sometimes it's hard to stay in touch with a larger network, but provide value to them where you can.
Yeah.
So, Justin, let's start to close out. I have what's called the Get Ready Hot Take Trio, and these are
All
three
right.
quick questions I ask all of my guests. They're rapid fire in nature. The
Yeah.
first one is, what money myth are you trying to break? Or career myth? What myth are you
Yeah.
trying to break?
That's great. So the biggest I think so on our ends for specifically on the career myth is that I can't build my network and I can't talk to the people that I need that I want to talk to. And me that's one of the biggest career myths that we try to break. I try to break as well. It's totally possible. You've got to make those connections, and you've really got to make it happen. But on the money myth, I think, and I mentioned it earlier, that even if you don't have that first job or whatever might have happened, that you can, yet your financial literacy actually can start at any time, and that's the important thing is that it starts. That's the biggest myth also that I'm trying to make, so even in this podcast.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I would urge that to people, and to parents who are listening, or
Yeah,
high school counselors. If you are working with young people in any capacity, is encourage financial literacy. It's never too early to start. Of course,
that's right.
sometimes it needs to be age appropriate. You can't teach a
Of
2-year-old
course.
about
Yeah,
trading commodities, but as long as you're age appropriate, it's a
exactly.
good lesson. So, Justin, let's get out the time machine for a minute. What
Yeah.
advice would you give your younger self going back in time, knowing what you know now about money and life?
Yeah. I think the time machine me about money and life. I think the biggest one is to have not been overly cautious in some of the things that so having and striking the balance versus needing to make a decision and move forward, but not be overly cautious and saying yes to a lot more things. I think that's one of the things that I think with my younger self, or would have done, that would have been also, like if it takes staying late at work or even doing a little bit more of knocking on doors of senior managers to say, hey, what can I take off your plate today? That came a little bit later in my life, and I wish that had happened younger, because the sort of the dividends that that'll pay off in a career, and network is really big.
Yeah, well, the one that comes back to me is, so my very first job, I had a good friend, and we decided that no matter what we were going to do, we were going to get in before the CEO of the company. It was, there were maybe 60 or
Yes.
70 employees, so he could see us, so it wasn't a huge company where he couldn't see us. So, it actually could bear fruit, but we were going to get in before him and we were going to leave after him. But
Yeah.
I mean, literally, we got in like 5 or 10 minutes before he got there, and we left 5 or 10 minutes after he got there. But you know
Smart.
what? He noticed,
Yeah.
and he was impressed because we were two. It was both of our. It was our first job for both of us. But he noticed that, and that made a huge impression. So what you're saying is that you do have to make some effort in moving forward, and yeah, you are going to have to pay your dues
Yeah.
in some respect, but that you can do little things, and doing those little things at the edges like you're talking about can pay huge dividends in the end, and it builds up a good work ethic.
Yeah.
You don't want
Absolutely.
to fall prey to the crazy hustle culture.
Hmm.
You don't need 20 side gigs to be
Yeah.
successful, but maybe you put in an extra 5 or 10 minutes here or there,
So
and it can really show.
I think also in your example, Tony, specifically, that is not about optics. And in fact, what that communicates about getting there before the CEO, and also staying 5 minutes later after he leaves, is actually really communicating to the organization and to your coworkers that you work with, like, hey, I'm committed to this job, so you can depend on me. I mean, that's really what it's communicating to. So it's very important.
Yeah, and we understood he actually worked the longest hours in the company. So,
Yeah.
you're right, is, looking back at that from the outside, was a smart move, as you point out, on multiple layers. But it also got me thinking about, like, okay, well, if I want to be CEO, which I thought at the time I wanted to be CEO, now I don't want to
Uh-huh.
be CEO. But, if I do want to be a CEO, this is what the amount of work and time that I'm going to have to spend. This is a serious undertaking to find success.
Yep.
And, I decided that that's not the path and the way that I want to do my career. But, if you're young and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, model yourself after the successful people, adopt their habits, see if they work for you or not. But
Great
if
idea.
somebody's successful, because CEO is clearly somebody who's been successful at the company,
Hmm.
whether or not you
Absolutely.
agree with the way they do it or anything else, it's like, just check it out,
Yeah.
and see. So last question is, what is your number one tip for changing the way we think about our money and careers?
Yeah. I think the number one tip about thinking about, I'm going to do the money one first, specifically, is to stop thinking about money as something bad. I think that's just such a big thing, and I know many people who that they don't think that necessarily, but there are people in my life for sure, and people I know where they're when asking or talking even about financial goals and financial planning and money in general, will just think like, well, I just think it's really bad to be thinking about money, and money is the root of all evil or whatever. That, like, I think that's not great, and that's one of the big things specifically. Um, and then from a career perspective, is that I think one of the big things that I want to change, specifically, is for people to sort of stop to think that something might not be possible for them from a career perspective, and having potentially a lens where, okay, I think that's like, for you, you said that I wanted to be CEO at one point, right? And then realizing that wasn't necessarily the goal. But thinking also that, like, actually you can be moving forward to a goal and a career that actually really might look very much like you think it is, and that you want to achieve and make the impact that you want to do. And there are steps to be able to do it. And so work towards the steps to be able to do it versus being in the space of it's just not possible.
I love that. Work with, find those steps and work towards them.
Yep.
That's great advice. So, Justin, where can people learn more about you? Where can they find out about your work at Baruch College?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn again, Justyn Makarewycz. I post there. That's my only sort of social media specifically. Our office at Zicklin also has a podcast that we've been retailoring specifically. Tony, you were one of our guests. And I'm also on our career website at the Zicklin Graduate Career Management Center. If you Google that too and click on the About Us, I'm on that website too.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to Justin's LinkedIn profile on the websites and the podcasts that he mentioned in the show notes. So you can go to the show notes to find those links. Justin, thanks for joining me today on the Get Ready podcast.
Tony, thanks for having me. This conversation has been great. It's great to see you again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you as well. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning into this episode of Get Ready Before Life Happens. If this conversation helped you change the way you think about money and your career, please be sure to subscribe and to tell a friend. You can also join the Get Ready movement at tonystewart.com to get access to all of my free tools and resources. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.